Welcome to Global Insiders Podcast. I am Ryan, the Peripatetic One, bringing you information about opportunities relating to jobs, traveling, and any information that can elevate you to your rightful place in this thing called life. You can find more information and how to methods on globalinsidersgroup.com. That is insiders with an S. And here is today's show. Hello, insiders. In today's episode, I'm feeling like a child in a candy store because as a kid, I dreamt about being a pilot. Even to this day, I will stop to stare at planes. But I had very little knowledge about what it required to become a pilot. And in today's episode, I seek to learn as much as I can about the profession and what it takes to get in the sky. Welcome to the show, Marlon. Please introduce yourself to the insiders.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Marlon Dayes, and I'm an airline pilot for Delta Airlines. And, so far it's been a dream for me. I always wanted to work for Air Jamaica growing up, and it didn't really work out. But here I am at my next dream airline working and enjoying it.
Okay, great. So,
Yeah.
my guests usually have done some serious miles in the air, but I can assure you that you are the one with the most experience and responsibility. Marlon, today I really want you to take us through the journey of becoming a commercial pilot. So let's begin from the start. Where were you born?
Begin from the start. I was born in Buff Bay, Portland, a small town in the parish of Portland. Grew up there and left Portland when I was probably about 11 years old. Then I moved to Kingston at 11, but I still had family in Portland, so I'd go back and forth. Moved to Kingston about 11 to start high school.
Okay, great.
And then, so that was a little bit about where I'm from.
Okay, good. So if I saw 10-year-old Marlon, what would I have encountered?
10-year-old Marlon. I was probably very, very talkative at 10 years old. Not afraid of crowds, always afraid to speak up with anything. I was always that little kid that would be reading the Bible at church or, we'd be doing some form of skits or acting. Always very outspoken. And just, love, I'd say the attention, just love attention since I was young. So that's probably me. Very active with sports and stuff as well. Love
Okay, really. Which sport?
Yeah.
Which sport?
I used to love playing football and I love playing cricket back then.
Okay, all right. Sounds fantastic. Sounds fantastic. What are your memories of high school? What stands out about high school for you?
High school for me really stands out. So I went to Wilmer's Boys. For me in high school, what really stood out was my friends and playing sports. I used to play football for Wilmer's. So that really stood out. And then the people there. Wilmer's for me was just, we had such a diverse group of boys there that it was just what really stood out. You had the uptown boys, you had the boys from country like myself, you had the guys from, all over that just made it this unique kind of culture there. Any kind of person you want is just there in this little high school. So I'd really say the guys really stood out and playing sports really stood out for me in high school.
Okay, that is fantastic. The audience for this show is really international, so they probably don't understand what a big deal it is to play high school football in Jamaica, but it's a pretty big deal, and your school is actually one of the better schools. So, did you win a championship?
Let's see. When I was there, the years before me, they won under 14 and they won under 16, but I was not actually a member of the championship team there. The year before me, they won. When I played, we went up until the semifinals, and then we lost. So what would be the equivalent of like the playoffs in the States? We went towards this playoffs and we lost.
Okay.
So, I mean, we went pretty far, but we never really won a championship with my high school there when I was playing.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. What did you decide to do after high school?
After high school, after high school, my mom had migrated to the U.S. So, being a minor, I was then forced to migrate to the U.S. I didn't really have a choice because I'm a minor and she's my parent. So I ended up migrating to the U.S. at 17, and I did one more year of high school in the U.S. Okay. When I came to the U.S. after that, I started to try to figure out how I could fulfill this dream of becoming a pilot. So I started doing all the research. I didn't really have anyone to really ask any questions. I didn't really know any other pilots.
Yes.
So I started, just Googling stuff, looking up stuff, calling different flight schools, asking questions. And I realized that I narrowed it down to two options. Well, there's three main options that you can do to become a pilot at the time, right? So I narrowed it down to you can either go through the military route, which I did not want to do that because I felt, you have to give a commitment for a certain amount of years. And I didn't want to commit too long because I wanted to be at the airlines quicker. So I was like, all right, that option is not really going to work too much for me. Then there's two options for the civilian route. So you can either do it with a degree program or you can do just straight flying. So with the ambitions that I had, I was like, I'm going to do it with the degree option. So I decided to try and find one of those flight universities that offered a degree program while you're flying. So I looked up, found a couple that I liked, and narrowed it down basically to two in Florida. There was either going to be Embry-Riddle or Florida Tech. And for many reasons, I decided to choose Florida Tech because they were closer to home, one of the main reasons, and they gave me more scholarships. And they were a little bit cheaper at the time. So I decided that I wanted to go to Florida Tech. So I went to Florida Tech and did a degree there in aviation management while I was flying as well.
Let's just stick a pin. So is there like any particular or specific subjects that students can do to increase their chances to go to a flight school?
Yeah. So most flight schools, so if it's a straight flight school, you're just going to do flying. There's really not much requirement in terms of knowledge that you have to have prior. You really kind of just need the money because it's going to be a physical skill like driving. So you need the money to pay for it, and you have to be, let's say, healthy then to pass what's called a medical, right? The medical, you're just going to go to a doctor and they're going to run a number of tests, including like your vision, your breathing, all these different things, and just make sure that you're healthy. And once you get this medical, that's really what you need. However, for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of other pilots would agree, subjects that I think will help you to make the transition easier will be some math. Not anything complex, like simple arithmetic is good. Let's see, maybe some geography, if you did geography, also will help, and some physics.
How simple
Those three subjects, I think.
How simple is simple when it comes to mathematics?
Not anything complex like no algebra, just basic addition and subtraction quickly, and division and multiplication. Just those four basic arithmetic. You can do some multiplication, some division, some addition, and some subtraction.
Okay.
That is kind of what you need. Because one of the tests that I had to do at the airlines was mental math, where they had stuff, maybe a question, like let's say a car is driving 60 miles per hour, how much miles would it cover in 60 minutes?
Okay.
Stuff like simple like that where it's not too difficult.
Okay.
So it's not no calculus or no algebra, just simple arithmetic.
Okay, good.
And then, and a little bit of physics will help, and geography will also help a little bit. But they'll usually teach you everything you need to know in training.
Okay, great. So just and to talk about the flight school again, what should aspirants look for when choosing a flight school?
When choosing a flight school, the big things I'd like to recommend is just do your research in the school to see if they're actually getting results, if they're actually producing good quality applicants in the industry. So that's one thing you want to try and look for to see, if this school is reputable. Everyone is going to say they're reputable, so that's kind of hard to decide. But another thing you want to try and check too is their safety record. You want to make sure that the flight school that you're going to has a good safety record. In the States, I can speak for them. The FAA is usually pretty strict on making sure that they abide by certain rules. But you want to make sure that the school has a good safety record because, safety is always the number one priority.
Yes.
And I'd also recommend, not trying to bash smaller flight schools, but if you can go to a bigger school to some extent, it's usually a little bit better. And let me explain why. Usually bigger schools have more resources.
Yes.
If you go to a smaller school, for example, and a plane breaks, it usually pushes back your training because they don't have much resources, much different airplanes to go to. FIT is a fairly big school. So usually if we go there and something is wrong with the plane, like I do my pre-flight and I find something that is non-standard with the plane or something that's wrong or looks weird, they'll just reassign me a new airplane. If you go to one of those smaller schools, they probably don't have a spare around, you know what I'm saying? So I usually try to recommend schools that have a little bit bigger to some extent, have more resources, have a good safety record. That's probably the two things I'd recommend.
Yes, those sound very important. How long is the training usually? Like, how long does it take to become a pilot?
That's a really good question. How long does it take? It's one of those things. Let me see the best way I can explain it. Flying is a physical skill, kind of like driving, right?
Yes.
So most people learn to drive at different paces, right? So you might, for example, jump in the car, your mom or your dad or some family member shows you something and you get it. Some people actually have to take driving classes and it takes them a while longer to learn to drive, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so everyone learns at different paces. It's kind of the same thing for flying, whereas everyone learns at a different pace. So some people will go and they get it right away, and some people it takes them longer. Usually, if you go to one of those schools, let's say that doesn't offer a degree program, that just does straight flying, like you're trying to get your licenses.
Yes.
It will probably, you can get your commercial license in a year and a half now. You can get your commercial license. Some people take 2, some takes 2.5, some people takes 3. Because a lot of times, sometimes the financial issue coming in, where some people can't afford to fly consistently. The weather is always going to be a factor. Sometimes the weather have you, push back your lessons where you can't fly today because it's thunderstorming. Other issues you might have is just the person themselves, how long it takes them to learn the skill. Because, we all learn at different paces. So it's one of those things where, for me, doing training, it took me a long time to what they call solo.
Yes.
Right? When I was just starting out, I had issues with landings.
Okay.
So I had to do that lesson for landings about 6 or 7 times.
Okay.
Some people do it just once and they get it. Some people do it 15, 20 times and they still don't get it.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where you can't really put a direct time on it. The flight schools are going to give you a timeline. Usually they'll say, hey, we can get you to your commercial license in a year or in a year and a half. But, that also depends on the individual.
Okay, good. All right, so you mentioned cost a number of times. What should people think about or budget for? Like just a ballpark number if you can.
A ballpark number is kind of difficult, again, because the schools all have different rates. But the last time I checked, and again, I wasn't in the flight training industry for about 3.5 years now, maybe even 4, since I last finished flight training. But the last time I checked, about 50 plus to 60,000 US can give you a commercial license.
Okay.
And again, that depends on how much time you do a lesson.
Yes. Okay.
Usually, I think schools for the single engine airplane, it runs to about 150 or even more per hour for flight training.
Yes.
And then usually it takes you about 250 hours or so standard to get your commercial license. So that's kind of what you're looking at. You're looking at around $50,000-$60,000 maybe, and that's usually to get your CFI all the way up to your flight instructor ratings. Usually that's a standard route that people go after they get the commercial license to build their flight time.
Okay. Could you just run through like the different levels of the career?
Most times when you start out, you get what you call first your private pilot license, right?
Okay, so private
pilot license is private pilot. The first stage that you have is for people that wants to just fly, let's say your family and friends, not for compensation or hire. And by that we mean you can fly your family and your friends, but you can't do it for any kind of money.
Yes.
Right? That's the first stage that you have. After that, usually people will do what's called next an instrument rating, right?
Yes.
The instrument rating is what allows you to fly through clouds.
Okay.
What allows you to fly without having visual reference to the ground, right?
Okay.
So there's 2 rules that we have. There's one that's called the visual flight rules, which you have to be able to see the ground and see visually.
Yes.
The horizon and all that. And you have the instrument flight rules, which is what allows you to be able to fly with the visibility is poor. So it allows you to fly through clouds and all that stuff where you can't see anything really out there. After you do that, usually people do their commercial pilot's license next.
Yes.
The commercial license is what allows you now to start flying for compensation or hire, for money.
Yes.
Right? That has some stipulations and some limitations to it, which it kind of gets complex. But as a commercial pilot with a commercial license, you can't just go out there and start advertising that, hey, I'm a commercial pilot and I'm willing to fly for money.
Yeah.
There's rules that you can't necessarily go out there and start branding yourself as the fly as a commercial pilot.
Yes.
Right? It gets a little bit complex, but there's some rules, some limitations to what you can do with that. The issue is when most people get their commercial license, you're not experienced enough to get an airline job. Right? Especially in the US, you need 1,500 hours to get an airline job, to get in the right seat as a co-pilot. Okay. Most other countries you can get in with 250, 300 hours, but they require additional experience in the US. So it's kind of tough to get up to that point. You following me so far?
Yes, I'm following it clearly.
Okay, good. So once you get your commercial license now, you are now at this point where you need to get flight time. One of the methods, the most common methods that people use to get flight time is they become a flight instructor.
Okay.
All right? So what I mentioned earlier, CFI, it stands for Certified Flight Instructor.
Okay.
That is a way where now I can now teach a new pilot that wants to become a pilot. So while I'm teaching you to become a pilot, we're both logging this flight time because I'm logging it as a flight instructor and you're logging it as a student.
Yes.
So now I'm getting some form of pay to do, I'm getting paid now to do this lesson with you while we're both getting the flight time. So that's the method I use as well to get my flight time for the airlines.
Okay.
So those are the different steps. Now, once you get $1,500, there's another license that you get. This is now called the Airline Transport Pilot's License. We call it an ATP for short. The ATP is, how I like to look at it, it's kind of like a PhD for flying. It's the top level, where is what you need to go to the airlines in the U.S.
Okay.
So that's the different levels now to get up to the airline level.
All right. Sounding good to me. Sounding very good. So what about you?
Right.
What is your major goal, like, regarding flying?
My major goal, I've achieved a few of them, but I still have some more left. My major goal was to be at a major U.S. airline. Delta in particular was my number one goal, and I'm there. And then my next goal is eventually I want to become a captain, is another goal for me here.
Yes.
And then another goal is to become to fly a wide-body aircraft. And a wide-body aircraft is the multi-aisle aircraft that fly to Europe and maybe Asia. They do long-haul flying.
Okay. Wow. Well,
So like the Boeing 777 or the Airbus A350, those big aircraft.
Okay. Great. What is so special about Delta? Because I noticed you mentioned Delta several times. So for persons who don't understand the industry, what is the
special for them? Is the reason why they're my dream airline. I had a special bond with them while I was in flight training, holding short of the runway. They were the first airline that came in on the frequency for me, and I heard the pilots over the frequencies while I was in flight training. And this guy had the most professional, majestic, to say the least, voice I've ever heard of any pilot.
Okay.
And it made me want to emulate this guy, where I wanted to be like this man, this guy, using Delta call sign and sounding so professional.
Okay.
And then, in addition to that, once I started the airlines, I started doing my research, and I just realized how professional they carry themselves. We are the only airline in the U.S. right now that still has the double-breasted traditional airline pilot blazer.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We still are very strict on wearing our hats, so we can have that professional pilot image all the time.
Okay.
Those are still the things that I started doing research, and then, just doing my research among the employees that were already there. I've never heard anyone said anything negative. They're always like, yeah, they treat us very well here. It's a great company, and all these different factors. And I did my research. They're doing so well in terms of performance and delivering the good product for the customers.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
all these different factors, they stood out for me because I truly believe that they're the best, and I want to be amongst the best.
Excellent.
So that's for me where that bond started, where I wanted to work for them really badly.
Excellent. Is it as fun as it looks? Like, what is a really fun day like in the air?
A fun day like in the air for me is, I'd have to say, the views. You'll never ever see the same sunset and the same sunrise. It's just always look different.
Okay. Nice.
It's like you just don't know what piece of artwork you're going to get today.
Wow.
You don't know how the cloud and how the formation and how the light and what angle you're going to see everything from in that specific day.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah, that would be the thing one of the things I love the most. And I love landing. Landing is one of my favorite parts because it's so challenging, whereas it's kind of like a challenge. Your challenge now is to try to see how soft we can get it this time around.
Okay.
With all the different factors and the different variables, with the winds, that's a factor. With just the runways, all these different things. Trying to get that perfect landing. It's an art that pilots work on their whole career. So it's challenging. So you
And
try to challenge yourself
and,
to do better than you did the
and,
last time.
and believe me, us passengers, we love it. we love the
Yeah, exactly.
landing. So yes, thank you for that.
And that's usually what they'll grade you on at the end. You
Exactly.
do a whole flight and it's smooth, and then they'll come off and they'll say, "Hey, great landing," and then you say, "All right, thanks."
Very good.
That's it. So that's those are the two most fun parts, I'd say. And I love one of the things why I wanted to be an airline pilot. I love making customers happy. I love at the end of the day when even if something goes not according to plan, let's say the weather is bad, and they come and they say, "Hey, thank you for keeping us informed and keeping us with what's going on, even though it's not your fault." That kind of stuff, it really means a lot to me. I love taking care of the passengers.
Of course, of
I love
course.
keeping them informed. I love making sure they're okay because once the door is shut, they're our responsibility. So that's
That's
another
right.
fun part of the job.
On the flip side, what does a challenging day looks like?
Challenging day on the flip side would be the weather is probably the most challenging aspect on a challenging day. Like for example, now during the summer, most afternoons there's thunderstorms. So a challenging day would just trying to be navigating around the weather and just making the correct decisions, the most safe course of action. Dealing with weather is probably a challenging day. In the winter, on the flip side, it would be blizzards, like snowstorms. It's a challenging day with contaminated runways with snow and all that different stuff. Those are
Oh,
two challenging days I can think of.
okay. Um, what is the what is the funniest reaction you have gotten from a passenger or passengers?
Funniest reaction I have gotten is let's see, landed, stepped out, had a really good landing. When I stepped out, one of the passengers was like, "Oh my God, you're so young." I was like, so I started smiling. They're like, "I bet you still get carded at the bar." And I started laughing, and they said, "Do they even let you in the bar?"
Ah,
So I laughed even more, and then they're like, "Hey man, good job," and they walked off. So that's probably one of the things I remember the most. It was just really funny. It's a nice way of telling me that I was super young. I found it
yes,
really
yes,
funny.
yes, yes.
So it's probably one of the funniest reactions I've gotten.
Okay, very good. So we'll be wrapping up soon, but just to change pace a little before we do so, do you have any countries or places that you want to travel to? Not necessarily as a pilot, but just for traveling.
Countries I want to travel to, I do have a few. I want to go to France. It's on my bucket list. Just as a passenger would be fine.
Yes.
Europe, I've never been to Europe before.
Okay.
Because the type of jet that I fly, we mostly do in the States, the Caribbean, Mexico, Canada.
Okay.
So I've never really crossed the Atlantic to say as a pilot or at all ever. So somewhere in European countries are on my bucket list, and the place that I want to go to the most as a pilot would be Jamaica because it's the country of my birth. I've not been on a trip there yet. I just really think it would be a special day for me when I can actually fly to my country and just to say I did it. Yeah, even if it's for 20 minutes, for just an hour, just a turn, that would be great for me. I just want to do it and say, hey, flew to my country. Tick that off my bucket list.
Well, you know what I can see in the future, and all of these things will be happening soon.
I hope you're right. Yeah, I'm working really hard towards trying to make all of this a success.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah, those are my goals as of right now.
Good. And just to do a little word association game, if I say airports, what comes to mind?
Airport, airplanes.
Okay. Flying.
Landing.
Okay. Jamaica.
Food.
Exercise.
Exercise. Bench press.
Bench press. Okay.
Random word.
Yeah. Mom.
So much words. Love, determination, strong, strength
Okay,
for sure.
fantastic. Next, last one, Instagram.
People. Come to Instagram, I think of people.
Okay, good. Well, Marlon, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciated it. If persons would like to reach out to you, how can they do so?
If persons would like to reach out to me, the easiest way would be through my Instagram. It's public, and I've really been answering a lot of aviation-related questions for like maybe the last 3-4 years, maybe. The easiest way would be to reach out to me. My Instagram would be 876 pilot.
Okay, so that's 876
no
pilot.
underscore, no hyphen, no nothing.
Okay, just straight 876.
Yep, and that's
pilot.
Jamaica area code. That's correct.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
much
much for having me, and I hope I was informative enough with the questions that you had. And if anything comes up and you guys have any more questions, feel free to reach out as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for listening today. I hope you are inspired. You can find more helpful and motivational material at globalinsidersgroup.com. That is, insiders with an S. You can also keep in touch at Global Insiders on Instagram. See you next time, but remember, you can be your own superhero. Bye.